In this episode of Dead Card Game Reviews, I'm going to be talking about Versus System, not 2PCG, but classic Versus System. So the first section we'll go over are the rules. Each player starts with 50 endurance, which is basically your life. I might end up using those two terms interchangeably, but the game always refers to it as endurance. Players take turns at the same time, with one player having initiative and getting their phases first. And then initiative always passes each turn. The phases, there are 4 of them. First phase is draw phase. Each player draws 2 cards simultaneously. You draw 2 cards every turn. Pretty good. The build phase, which is sort of like a main phase, it's broken up into 3 steps. So you have a resource step, where you get to play a resource. Recruit step, where you play characters and equipment. And formation step, where you move characters and equipment around. The combat phase, where combat will happen. And the recovery phase. So during each turn, each player is going to get an opportunity to do this, but one player is going to get to do it first. So whoever has initiative is going to be the first one attacking. So potentially they could take out their opponent's characters before they even get a chance to attack for that turn. Yeah, so breaking down the game a little more and going over the phases a little more specifically. So opening hand is 4 cards. You get 1 mulligan. The mulligan is you put your entire 4-card hand on the bottom of your deck in any order and then draw 4 more cards. And you'd only do that once. But the 4-card hand isn't too bad because you're drawing 2 cards every turn anyway. Then the build phase. So first step being the resource step. You can put any card from your hand face down into your resource row and it becomes a resource. It provides 1 resource point for the turn. The things you want to put there are plot twists and locations because they can be played from the resource row, unlike characters and equipment. So these are the 4 card types: plot twist, location, character, equipment. That's it. So then the next step is the recruit step. So each of your current resources will provide you 1 resource point. Characters and equipment have a recruit cost, which is a gold number, which means you have to pay resource points to play them and put them into play. Plot twists and locations have a silver cost, which is simply a threshold cost. You don't pay resource points for those, you just have to have that many resources in your resource row in order to play them. And if you put them face down into your resource row, they count themselves. So for example, a 1 cost plot twist, you could play turn 1. You could set it face down and then immediately play it because it meets its own threshold cost. The same thing with a location. The third step is the formation step, where you move your characters around. So characters will be in 2 rows. There is a front row and a support row. Most of the time, characters are only able to attack if they are in the front row, with the exception of the ranged ability, which allows characters to attack from the support row. The other thing is a character in the support row with another character in the front row directly in front of it is considered protected and cannot be attacked until the character in front of it is removed in some way. So, but again, there's another exception: flight. A character with flight can fly over the front row and hit a support row character. So the way combat works, because getting into the third phase, combat. So characters exhaust, which means they turn 90 degrees sideways to show that they're attacking. And they choose an attack target. So they choose a defending character. The attack of each character is compared to the other's defense. If the attack is equal to or higher than the defense, that character becomes stunned. It means they flip face down and turn 90 degrees. At this point, they're still in play, but they're kind of ignored. The only thing that counts is their name. They lose all other text on the card. And as far as like combat is concerned, they're no longer in play. So if you stun a front row character, a support row character that's directly behind it is no longer protected, and you can attack it. The way damage is dealt to players then is if the attacker's attack is higher than the defender's defense, the difference is dealt as damage to the defending player. So you can only take damage when you're being attacked. You won't take damage back while you're attacking. However, if a character becomes stunned for any reason, its controller takes damage equal to its cost. So even while attacking, that can still happen. So if your character attacks and gets stunned from combat, you will lose endurance equal to its cost. But when you're attacking a character and stunning it, you're doing the difference as breakthrough damage, and your opponent's losing endurance equal to that character's cost for getting stunned. So kind of like the 50 endurance starting life total seems like a lot until you realize you're losing endurance constantly. And then finally, the recovery phase. You choose one of your stunned characters and recover them, which means you flip them face up, but they still stay exhausted, turn 90 degrees. And then all of your other stunned characters get KO'd, so they go to your discard pile. And then everything gets readied or untapped for the turn, and then initiative passes to the next player, and it goes to the next turn. So a player loses the game if their endurance is 0 or less at the end of the turn. So they have a chance to heal out of it if their endurance hits 0 or lower in the middle of the turn. They don't lose until the turn ends. If a player runs out of cards in their deck, they simply don't draw. They continue playing as normal, they don't lose. They just don't get to draw cards anymore. There's no maximum hand size. Plot twists do not have to be put into the resource row to play them. They can be played from your hand at any time. The only thing is, if you play them from your hand, they go straight to the discard pile after they resolve. So they won't remain in play and give you a resource point every turn. Just to clarify, if you do set a plot twist face down during your resource step and then later activate it, it remains face up for the rest of the game unless an effect flips it face down again. But even while face up, it's still giving you a resource point every turn. Characters and locations are unique, so it's sort of like the legendary rule in Magic. If you play a character with the same name as a character you already have in play, the old one dies and you keep the new one. You don't get to choose. It's always the new one stays and the old one dies. Locations don't work that way. If you have a location face up, you cannot flip another location with the same name. So it won't. You can't play it and kill the old one. You just can't play the new one as long as you already have one of the same name in play. If your opponent has no characters face up, you can attack them directly. And that damage is still referred to as breakthrough, even though it's direct. It's just damage that characters deal to players is always called breakthrough. At least combat damage. Combat damage that characters deal to players is always referred to as breakthrough damage. Moving on to the next section, get into mechanics. This game is basically just Magic mixed with Yu-Gi-Oh! If you couldn't tell by the whole, like, attack and defense, things dealing damage to each other as they attack, and then, like, you know, there's a lot going on here. But it has chaining, just like Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it also works the same way as the stack in Magic, last in, first out, so you can activate any plot twists, abilities on locations and characters. Abilities in this game are called powers. An activated ability is called a payment power because it's a power that has a cost that you pay to activate it. There's always an arrow. Everything before the arrow is the cost. Everything after the arrow is the effect. Activate means exhaust the character to pay for this effect. So it's basically like the tap symbol in Magic. Characters in this support row are able to reinforce adjacent characters with the same team affiliation. So it cannot be diagonally. So a support row character can reinforce a character directly in front of it or a character to the left or right of it. And what reinforce does is it stops you from taking breakthrough. So if your character is getting attacked and it's going to become stunned, you can exhaust your adjacent support row character. You don't take breakthrough. You will still lose endurance equal to its cost for it getting stunned, though. Another thing that comes into play with the team affiliations is characters with the same team affiliations, who again are adjacent, can all attack together. So you add their attack together and choose a single target for them to hit. You do not cause breakthrough while doing this, because you could do really dumb stuff. Just have a bunch of characters attack a little 1/1 and do a ton of breakthrough. So that's not possible to do. So breakthrough doesn't happen, and the defending character picks one to hit back against. They don't get to hit all of them. I already talked about how flight allows characters to attack over the front row and hit support row characters that are protected, and range allows characters to attack from the support row. A character with flight and range can attack from the support row into the support row. So flight and range do matter when declaring team attackers, because every attacker in a team attack has to legally be able to attack. So a support row character in a team attack would have to have range. There's a pretty good interaction between players, I would say, because of the chaining. And being able to respond to what your opponent is doing makes the game pretty fun. The next section is card layout. The different card types are easily identifiable. Characters are always red or black. Equipment is always silver. Locations are always green. Plot twists are always blue. Very easy to tell the difference. The cost is clear, and the difference between recruit cost and threshold cost is also very clear, with recruit cost being gold and threshold cost being silver. The cards are very easy to read, and there's consistent wording across the board, which isn't always a thing with dead card games. They definitely put a lot of effort into keeping things consistent across the whole board, and like if a card does functionally the same thing as another card, it's gonna say it in the exact same words. The only problem I have with the card layout is flight and range being symbols rather than keywords when the game already has keywords. If I don't play this game for a while and then come back, I tend to forget that flight and range are little symbols outside of the text box and that I need to actually look for them in the frame of the card. But once I get used to that, then I'm like, good, it's fine. But at first I'm expecting to see keywords in bold that are like flight and range like everything else. But that's my only problem. The next section, artwork. It is a comic book TCG. It is mostly Marvel and DC. So it makes sense for the comic book art, and it fits well with the whole theme. I believe all of the art is original. I don't think there's scans. I could be wrong, but the quality is very good. Not much to say. They did a good job. If it's a TCG about comics, art looks like comic art. Did it. So, in conclusion, it's an underrated game. It is a lot of fun to play. I drafted a sealed box that I had with some Magic players, and they loved it and said they would play it again. So it's appealing to Magic players and probably Yu-Gi-Oh players too. I played Yu-Gi-Oh a lot growing up. I didn't get into Magic until like college, but yeah, as someone who has played both of those games, like this game is really cool. I genuinely enjoy it. It's one of my favorite TCGs, not even just like dead TCGs, but I still play it all the time. I have a cube of it, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Being able to draft a card game is very important to me because that's my favorite like casual format for any trading card game. So if I can make a cube, it immediately gets more points for me. Or if I can buy a booster box and we can do an actual draft, which, like I said, I've done with this game. So it ranks pretty high for me. It's a very good game. I recommend it. Thanks for watching.